And the answer, again, is error, where you are not allowed a divorce. Those Irish eyes have simply got to keep on smiling, whatever happens.
Well, we didn't look very happy. There was a lot of noise, but remarkably little scribbling. So, David, to any effect?
I thought I was going to have a total blank score until you came to the fifth one, and I didn't know the answer to that one. That's why one score in the whole.
So you knew nothing
round.
about marriage rates, divorce rates, or anything else?
I thought I did, but obviously I didn't.
Claire, how did we do this time?
Well, I got 2. I got the highest divorce rate, Denmark, because I thought it's the nearest to Scandinavia, and they usually have the highest divorce rate. And the highest birth rate, error, I just guessed at, but I didn't get the last one.
It was a good guess. You ought to have guessed again at that one.
Yes. So I only got 2.
Big H, how did we do?
Well, I thought I was going to finish as the way I started, you know, getting a blank sheet, but I came up on number 5 question with error. A strike on the bell. So I make that we have got 20 points. It makes it a damn close run thing.
Well, let's see how our away team did. James Hunt?
Well, I just came good on the last 2 with the error questions because I knew that they didn't divorce too much, and with their religious connection to their laws, I thought they'd probably breed quite effectively too.
Well, I must say I thought the last one would fool them, that people would automatically say Italy is a place where there was no divorce.
Yeah.
You scored 2, Petula Clark?
3.
Scored 3. Which
Yes.
ones did you get wrong?
Well, the first one about the highest marriage rate, I thought Italy. And then the Belgium thing really got me. But
You just didn't want to believe you had to wait that long.
no, 25. I mean, I thought that was another trick.
Yes.
And
A pretty cruel one at that.
Yes.
Yes. And Freddie Forsyth, how did you get on?
Well, not too hot, only two right. The obvious one for me was no divorce in Ireland, which I knew, obviously. But I didn't realise they were such good little breeders. And, of course, number 1, I thought that the highest marriage rate was Italy. Because the way they go on, you think they're always at it.
And you scored 2, and that means that the away team has scored 35 points, which I do believe is enough to tip the balance.
We shall see. So, if you scored correctly in round 5, your sheet should look like this.
And that gives a cumulative maximum possible at home of 450. And let's just remind ourselves of the outcome of this friendly contest in the studio. The home team scored 230, but in that very last round, the away team pipped them by 5 points with 235. A game of swinging fortunes and pounding hearts.
Well, all I can say is thank you very much indeed, both teams. Sir David, thank you. Clare Francis, thank you. Henry, James Hunt, Petula, and Frederick Forsyth, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you, Magnus, and I'm only sorry we lost.
Just a final thought. When we vote next week, we'll be voting for the future and for our children's future, because our children will perhaps grow up thinking of themselves as Europeans. And so our grandchildren perhaps will be rather puzzled at the extraordinarily British attitude that led to that celebrated Times headline, "Fog in Channel, Europe isolated." So we leave you with some young thoughts about Europe, specially prepared for us by the children of a London primary school.
When I think of France, I think of men on bicycles selling onions. When I think of France, I think of people eating frog's legs in a cafe.
If I were meeting a German at an airport, he'd be walking quite smartly and sturdy, and he'd walk in a straight kind of way.
Germany is a rich country.
I think Holland's very famous for tulips.
Luxembourg is important for its radio broadcasts.
Italians are very famous for spaghetti, pizza, ice cream.
Italy is long, stringy spaghetti, cornetto ice cream, boats going down rivers. Germany is Hitler, war, soldiers and fighting, hamburgers. Luxembourg is snow. Holland is Dutch cheese, clogs, snow, ice, fur, dancing, clothes and hats. Belgium is yellow in It's a Knockout.
Well, that's Europe. Belgium is yellow and It's a Knockout. That's it in perspective. Good night. in 10 days' time, millions of viewers throughout the world, some 500-600 million, they tell me, will be tuning in to BBC One for the television event of the decade, the royal wedding between His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales and the Lady Diana Spencer. But how much do we actually know about royalty?
For the next 45 minutes, we'll be putting questions about various aspects of royalty to our two distinguished guest panels. And we hope that you'll be joining in at home. There's a score sheet on page 27 of the Radio Times, or you can use the back of an envelope. Any old scrap of paper will do.
Any old wedding invitation you happen to have lying around. But just to give you the idea and to get you into the mood, let's dip into the family album for a sample question. One of these babies is Prince Charles. Is it A, B, or C? Which is Prince Charles? And the answer is B. Baby A is Princess Anne, baby C is the Duke of Edinburgh, would you believe? But if you wrote B, you would have scored 15 points. It's all as easy as that. So let's meet our teams. It goes without saying that they were all beautiful babies, they tell me. Robert Lacey, author of Majesty, a great book on the royalty that came out, in Jubilee year, Robert. Next to him, Vera Lynn, who's met more members of the royal family than most of us know exist. And on her far side, Malcolm Williamson, Master of the Queen's Music, with a K, and as such a member of the royal household, and thank you very much indeed for being allowed to come, sir. That's my team, and all I can say to you, any of you with a blank score sheet goes to the Tower for 3 months. Next.
Well, I have a team of distinguished thespians who have played royalty on the screen. We have Angela Pleasence, who played Catherine Howard in The Six Wives of Henry VIII. Now, we had hoped to have another of Henry VIII's wives, Jane Seymour, but most unfortunately, Anne Stalybras is unable to be with us tonight. Instead, we welcome the young Princess Anastasia from the film Nicholas and Alexandra, Fiona Fullerton. And beside her, her father, Tsar Nicholas, in the comely shape of Michael Jayston. That's my team, Chris.
So, pencils at the ready. You at home earn 15 points for each correct answer, and each of the panel scores 15 for each correct answer they get. So you can compare your score with the team score. Magnus.
Well, now, round one is about royal weddings. Question one. The marriage of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip took place in, was it A, 1947, B, 1949, or C, 1952? Was it 1947, 1949, or 1952? A, B, or C? And the answer is 1947, A.
Princess Elizabeth married during the time of national shortages following the Second World War, and like any other bride, the princess had been saving up her clothing coupons for her wedding dress. There was a minor stir in some quarters when it was learned that the material had been spun by Italian and Japanese silkworms, enemy silkworms, while in the event they were nationalist Chinese worms. So all was well.
I remember that shock horror probe. Now, question two. Prince Charles and Lady Diana are to be married in St. Paul's Cathedral. All other royal weddings have been in Westminster Abbey. Is that true or false?
And the answer is false. Because so many recent royal weddings have taken place in Westminster Abbey, we can be forgiven for assuming that all royal weddings have taken place there. Although the coronation of every sovereign since William the Conqueror has taken place in the Abbey is not the only venue for royal weddings.
Question number three now. Prince Charles's best man will be A, Prince Andrew, B, Prince Edward, C, neither of those. Is it A, B, or C for Prince Charles's best man?
And the answer is C, neither. There will not be a best man, according to royal tradition. Prince Andrew and Prince Edward will be supporters. Prince Andrew, however, will be in charge of the wedding ring. Let's hope he doesn't lose it. The wedding ring will be fashioned from the remains of a gold nugget that was found at the beginning of the century in a Welsh mine. This nugget has provided the gold for the wedding rings of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth herself, Princess Margaret, and Princess Anne.
Now, question 4. Queen Victoria was married in Windsor. Is that true or false? Queen Victoria was married in Windsor. True or false?
All done. The answer is false. She was married in the Chapel Royal at St James's Palace. And many of the arrangements at Queen Victoria's marriage to Prince Albert in 1840 led to the traditional, what is now traditional, white wedding, as we know it.
Now, question 5, the last question in this first round. The wedding ceremonials for July the 29th are arranged by the Earl Marshal, the Duke of Norfolk. Is that true or is it false? That the wedding ceremonials are arranged by the Earl Marshal. True or false?
Right. The answer is false. Although July the 29th has been declared a public holiday, the marriage is not a state occasion, so the ceremonials will be arranged by the Lord Chamberlain, Lord Maclean, and not the Earl Marshal, who's responsible for state occasions such as coronations, opening of Parliament, and state funerals.
Now, just before we check our scores, here's Fred Housego, who's been applying his enthusiasm for history to the more romantic aspects of royal weddings.
Many people have asked why the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana is not taking place here at Westminster Abbey. The fact is that until the future King George VI married Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon here in 1923, the last royal marriage of a King of England was that of Richard II to Anna Bohemia in 1382. So really the traditions of royal marriages in the Abbey is a relatively recent affair. However, the reason we're here today is because contained within are 3 royal love stories. And after all, what is a marriage if it's not about love? We begin with Edward I, the great warrior king who married Eleanor of Castile. Theirs was a love affair, even though it was an arranged marriage. Eleanor died in Nottinghamshire, and wherever her coffin rested on its way back to interment here, Edward placed a cross in tribute and remembrance. That most famous Prince of Wales, the Black Prince, married his widowed cousin, Joan, the Fair Maid of Kent, for love. But his son, Richard II, married Anne of Bohemia purely for reasons of state. However, like his forebears, that too turned into a great love affair. And when Anne died at Sheen Palace, he was so distraught that he had it razed to the ground so that no physical memory of his great loss would remain. This is the last resting place of the first of the Tudors, Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. Their union ended the Wars of the Roses, which had torn England apart for over 50 years. Obviously, their marriage was a matter of state, but out of a public necessity grew a private romance, and they were devoted to each other. Their eldest son, Arthur, the Prince of Wales, died shortly after his marriage to Katherine of Aragon in 1501. And incidentally, that was the last great royal wedding in St Paul's Cathedral. Eventually, Henry VIII married his brother's widow, Katherine, and so began a notorious series of marriages. Two of those marriages ended tragically here on Tower Green when Anne Boleyn, his second wife, and Catherine Howard, his fifth, were beheaded. However, the Tower of London wasn't only just a fortress and a prison, it is to this day a royal palace. This is its private chapel, St John's in the White Tower, where it is thought Mary Tudor, the oldest daughter of Henry VIII, was betrothed by proxy to Philip II of Spain. But it would be an omission, whilst in the tower, not to mention its founder, William the Conqueror, whose single-minded attitude to courtship would raise many an eyebrow even today. When he first proposed to Matilda of Flanders, she refused him, saying she'd marry no bastard. Now, this must have upset William, because he kicked in her bedroom door, dragged her from her bed, pulled her around the room by her hair and beat her up. Enthralled by this decisive action, she swore she would have no other than William. Unorthodox as William's wooing may have seemed at the time or even today, their marriage was highly successful and, in fact, a love match. We take it for granted today that royal occasions will be public property. Yet here within the privacy of St James's Palace, 6 weddings of kings and queens have taken place. Starting with the dual monarchs William and Mary in 1677, and ending with George V when as Duke of York he married May of Teck in 1893. Romantically, most of the weddings here have been very, very happy marriages indeed, the exception being that of George IV to Caroline. On the day of his wedding, he was so drunk he had to be virtually carried down the aisle, and within 3 days the marriage was dead. Later, at his coronation at Westminster Abbey, he had her forcibly excluded from the Abbey to the delight and the astonishment of the crowd outside. In this brief look at royal marriages of the past, from the violence of William the Conqueror onto the formal and arranged marriages of the Middle Ages, and finally the romance of our own Prince of Wales, there's enough variety and intrigue to fascinate anybody's imagination. Lust, diplomacy and romance have each played their part throughout the ages.
They'll keep you going. Fred Haskell, Mastermind Royal. So at the end of that round, your score sheet should look like this. A, false, C, false, false. So, how did your team do, Magnus?
Rather well. Though I say it myself, rather well. Fiona Fullerton, for instance, got 4 out of 5 right. Anastasia. The only one you got wrong was that Queen Victoria was married at Windsor, you thought. Had you any particular reason for thinking that?
Well, I knew she was married at the Chapel Royal somewhere, and I thought it was Windsor, so I put true, and it was obviously wrong.
Right, and Tsar Nicholas, Michael's Jayston, you changed your mind twice in these score sheets, and each time you changed it for the worse, but you still got 3 out of the 5 right. You're very worried about the wedding ceremonials, not up on them.
No, not at all. And I went along with one of them because Fiona went along with it.
Were you cribbing, in fact?
No.
And finally, Angela Pleasence, you got the first 3 right, going like a train, and then fell away.
Oh, dear.
Still, that gives us a total, out of 75, of 50 for the first round. Pretty good.
I'm now going to talk to my team, but whether I should or not remains to be seen. Malcolm Williamson, we've got 3.
2 only, I think.
Well, I've got you down for 3 here. Vera, you did rather well there. You got the got the date wrong. 1952 yes, you had them married. A bit late, really, wasn't it? Yeah. When we come to think about it.
I know, I didn't.
Will they ever talk to you again, I ask myself. Shall we come to the historian in our midst, who got 2?
Oh, like the worst of all, didn't I?
Not good, Robert. No, we got the marriage date right, and we had the sort of Norfolk doing the ceremony.
I always vote for the Duke of Norfolk when in doubt. Yes, I was wrong.
I think you might be right. My team have amassed, if that is the correct word, 40 points.
So, with a lead of 10 points, we move on to round 2, and round 2 is called Friends and Relations. Now, in the royal family's case, fairly close relatives are also royal families in their own right. So, in this round, we'll be looking at our own royal family's connections with other European thrones.
Question number 1. Prince Charles is heir to how many thrones? Is it A, 1, B, 8, or C, 15 of them? How many is he heir to?
1, 8, or 15, and the answer is 15. Because the Queen is not only Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, she is also Queen of 14 other monarchical Commonwealth countries, including Australia, New Zealand, and Canada.
Question number 2. The Queen and Prince Philip have only one ancestor in common, Queen Victoria. Is that true or false? Is Queen Victoria the only ancestor they have in common?
True or false, and the answer is false. It is true that they're both descended from Queen Victoria. She was their great-great-grandmother. But much further back in history is another known ancestor, Frederick II, King of Denmark in the 16th century, whose daughter Anne married James VI of Scotland and First of England.
And question number 3. The British royal family is related to the King of Spain. Is that true or false? Are they related to the King of Spain?
And the answer is true. Queen Victoria's great-great-grandson is King Juan Carlos of Spain, and he is third cousin to the Queen.
So there is a Buckingham Palace Benidorm connection. Let's turn to question number 4. The British royal family is also related to the now empty thrones of A, Russia, B, Romania, or C, Russia, Romania and Yugoslavia. Is it A, B or C? Russia, Romania, Yugoslavia.
And the answer is C. By descent from Queen Victoria, the British royal family is related to the former royal households of Russia, Romania and Yugoslavia. So give yourself 15 points at home if you wrote C.
Now, question 5. Queen Victoria was known as the grandmother of Europe. But who was called the father-in-law of Europe? Was it A, Prince Albert the Consort, or B, Frederick the Great of Germany, or C, King Christian IX of Denmark? Which was the father-in-law?
A, B or C, and the answer is C. Christian IX of Denmark was called the father-in-law of Europe because 4 of his children ascended European thrones. However, Queen Victoria was quite rightly called the grandmother of Europe. There are 7 kingdoms in Europe today, and in 5 of these, the ruling families are directly descended from Queen Victoria. First, there's her great-great-granddaughter, who reigns over us. Secondly, her great-grandson, King Olaf IV, reigns over Norway. Thirdly, her great-great-grandson, Carl Gustav, is the King of Sweden. Fourthly, her great-great-granddaughter, Margrethe, is Queen of Denmark. And fifthly, her great-great-grandson is King Juan Carlos, who reigns over the plains of Spain.
So you see, there are rather a lot of them. At the end of the 3rd round, your score should look like this. C, false, true, C, C. I come first to Mr. Robert Lacey, who has 100%.
I'm rather pleased about that, yes. It was the Danes that did it. Whenever there was a vacant throne in Europe, they always used to ask the Danes to fill it.
Why?
Well, because they were the safest, you see. You can never trust an Englishman, but the Danes were always safe. So Yugoslavia or Greece.
I always find it very difficult to work out this interrelationship between all the houses royal.
Yes, my rule is I always took the largest number in all these questions, you see.
What a good rule of thumb, and it's a pity, Vera, that you didn't apply it. But you got all those thrones right.
Yes.
And you did get the father-in-law of Europe.
Yes, I did. I did.
I think you might be back in favour now in Buckingham Palace.
Yes.
Yeah, they'll speak to you again now.
Yeah.
Now, Malcolm Williamson, I have to report that the top of his sheet, how many thrones is Prince Charles heir to? It's got 15 question marks.
Oh, well, lots, quite a number.
Yeah, quite a number of question marks.
Well, as many as there are Commonwealth countries.
Yes, no. My team have got 50.
You won't count that.
I'm not going to count it, no.
But you're going to say there's a throne of Australia?
I'll send you back if you're not careful on the next boat. 50 points my lot have got, which brings them sum total of 90.
Well, now, 66% of my team clearly benefited from being in the film Nicholas and Alexandra, because because Fiona Fullerton and Michael Jayston did rather well in the sort of middle bits. Fiona, were you remembering your part as Anastasia? You got the 3 middle ones absolutely right.
Did I? Oh, yes. Well, I thought there must be some connection with Russia, because I remember when I was at the premiere, I was presented to Lord Louis, and he said to me, when he came up to me, he said, "My dear," he said, "I've been in love with you for a very long time." And I looked terribly shocked. And he said, "Yes, I had an enormous crush on Anastasia." And apparently he was very fond of Anastasia and was very much in love with her at one time. She was very vivacious and bright. So I thought, well, there must be a connection with Russia there somewhere, so I put that all down.
Michael Jayston, did you do a lot of historical research for the part when you were
Yes, quite a
playing
lot. I read the Robert Massey book on it, and in fact I got number 3 about the relation to the King of Spain, because I knew that haemophilia had been passed from Victoria to, I think, about 20 monarchs at that time. I know 2 of the Spanish claimants to the throne at that time died in a car crash through haemophilia, which they wouldn't normally have died, just through bruising.
That's really following the bloodline rather seriously, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And Angela Pleasence, this wasn't quite your period. I think you have various PhDs in the Tudor period rather than... Only 2, alas. but I think you'll no doubt be on better ground in the third round, I can assure you. As a result of that round, we have amassed the total of 45 for that round, which makes us 95 now. So we're still 5 points ahead of you, I think. And we go into round 3, slightly ahead of the other team. And round 3 is about royalty's place in our society. Question 1. The Queen has no constitutional role in Commonwealth countries. Is that true or false? That she has no constitutional role in Commonwealth countries. Question number 2. All the Queen's residences are paid for by the civil list. Is that true or false? That all the Queen's residences are paid for by the civil list. Question number 3. Royalty's costs are met by the civil list, and this year is the amount A, £2.1 million, B, £3.9 million, or C, £8.6 million? Is it A, B, or C? 2 million, nearly 4 million, or 8.6 million? Question 4. The Queen is the first citizen of the land. But who is the second citizen? Is it A, the Duke of Edinburgh, B, the Archbishop of Canterbury, C, the Prince of Wales, or D, the Prime Minister? Is the second citizen of the land A, B, C, or D? And question 5. How many Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom have served under the Queen since she came to the throne? Is it A, 6, B, 8, or C, 9? A, B, or C, 6, 8, or 9? Here with the answers, Cliff.
You're still counting out the Prime Ministers here, actually. Yeah. Question 1 said the Queen has no constitutional role in Commonwealth countries, true or false? Well, the answer is false. She has no constitutional role in the republics of the Commonwealth, all those Commonwealth countries which have their own monarchies, though all member countries recognise her as the head of the Commonwealth. However, in those areas of the Commonwealth that are not republics or other monarchies, she does play a constitutional role. Question 2 said that all the Queen's residences are paid for by the civil list. Is that true or false? Well, the answer is false. Buckingham Palace, St James's Palace, Kensington Palace, Hampton Court, Windsor Castle, Holyrood House in Edinburgh are official residences maintained by government funds. Sandringham and Balmoral, however, are the Queen's personal property. Question 3 asked, how much was allocated to the civil list this year? Was it 2.1 million, 3.9, or 8.6 billion? If you wrote B, 3.9 million, give yourself 15 points. The civil list this year amounted to £3,964,200. It's not a salary paid to the Queen and others of the royal family, but a way of reimbursing them for their expenses. Before 1760, the sovereign both owned the property of the Crown estate and enjoyed the revenue from it. However, in 1760, the revenue from the Crown estate was surrendered to Parliament in exchange for a civil list income, although the Crown kept the property. And this surrender is actually repeated each reign. The surplus revenue of these estates in the financial year 1980-81 amounted to £11.4 million. In other words, although the taxpayer, through Parliament, pays £3.9 million for royalty, the family received £7.5 million less than they would have done had they not surrendered the Crown estates to the nation in the first place, if you see what I mean. Question 4 asked, who is the second citizen of the land, just before you? Is it the Duke of Edinburgh, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Prince of Wales, or the Prime Minister? Well, the answer is A. It's the Duke of Edinburgh. He was granted precedence next to Her Majesty in 1952. So the order of precedence after the sovereign for the 4 examples is 1, the Duke of Edinburgh, 2, the Prince of Wales, 3, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the Prime Minister is 4th. Question 5 asked, how many Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom have served under the Queen since she came to the throne? Is it A, 6, B, 8, or C, 9? And the answer is 8. Here they come to remind you. Churchill, Eden, Macmillan, Douglas Hume, Wilson, Heath, Callaghan, and Margaret Thatcher. Those of you under 30, give yourself 1.5 bonus points because you weren't old enough to know.
Thank you.
Prime Ministers, like elected presidents, come and go at the whim of the electorate. The Queen does not. She represents a wide range of experience accumulated over her 29 years on the throne. In theory, however, she is all-powerful. It's the royal prerogative to appoint the Prime Minister. Judges, ambassadors and archbishops are appointed in her name. She is theoretically able to grant a royal pardon, though the royal prerogative of mercy has, in recent times, been exercised strictly on the recommendation of the Home Secretary, who has to obtain the routine royal consent. In practice, however, the power of the British monarch has been vastly reduced. The monarch can advise, warn, and encourage.
So at the end of that round, your score sheet should look like this. False, because the Queen has a constitutional role in the Commonwealth. False, because all residences are not paid for by the civil list. The civil list total is B, 3.9 million. The Duke of Edinburgh, A, is the second citizen, and the answer to 5 is B. There have been 8 prime ministers in the present Queen's reign.
Now, let's come to the civil list bit, because Robert Lacey gave them too little, Malcolm Williamson gave them too much, and Vera Lynn gave them just enough.
Yes.
Did you know, or did you guess? Come on.
No, well, I had a sort of rough idea, and I just plumbed for the one in the middle.
You did rather well then, didn't you? You just got the second citizen wrong.
Yes.
You thought it was the Archbishop.
I did, indeed.
You're not on your own, because nobody else got it right. Nobody else got it right either. On this occasion, Malcolm Williamson, we are not in disagreement about the constitutional role of the monarch in Commonwealth countries.
Absolutely, yes.
Did you have in mind Mr. Gough Whitlam, 1974?
I didn't think of that at all. No, every Australian would answer as I answered,
Would they?
I think, without doubt, including Gough.
Including Gough Whitlam?
My very good friend.
Oh, is he a good friend of yours?
Yes.
Oh, good. Now, we had the Archbishop of Canterbury, Robert, didn't we? As the
Yes.
second citizen in the land.
Well, I think he should be, even if he isn't. But
on what grounds?
Well, I think we're Church of England, that sort of thing, and I would have thought he should be higher up the list than Duke of Edinburgh myself. I'll probably get sent to the tower for saying that.
Anyway, my team got 40 points, which takes their sum total to 130. How many have you got?
Well, ours got 35 on this one. Actually, that was after a recount, because Fiona Fullerton claims that she scored 11.5, you see, because you were very generous about people being under 30 and getting an extra point if
You
they...
said 1.5 points if
That's
you're
right,
under 30.
yes. And she claims to be under 18 here.
No, 25.
But I'm afraid I've had to take off the 1.5. I noticed that you got both the answers about how much money was involved in royalty, correct? Is that a feminine trade, you think?
No, I must confess that the answer to number 3 was a bit of a guess. I must say I thought 8.6 million was rather a lot, so I plumped for 3.9, which sounded about right.
And Michael Jayston, first 2 were okay, and then you just went to pieces.
I slumped. I went for the 8.6. I thought with everything going up, it ought to be 8.6 million. And the Archbishop of Canterbury, I got the same as...
Yes, I thought
I think Terry Wogan ought to be the second citizen.
He is.
Now, all 3 of you, and indeed Robert, chose the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yes.
Why did you choose the Archbishop of Canterbury, Angela Pleasence?
Well, like Robert Lacey, as head of the church, I had thought he would be the second citizen.
Anyway, you scored the best of our team that time with 15. I said you were going to make your comeback, and that gives us a total of 35 points. Now, if we look at the overall score, we are level pegging, each with 130 points.
Go.
So we'll go into the last round, round 4, and that is about former Princes of Wales and, of course, about our present Prince of Wales. And here is Cliff with the questions.
Question number 1 is about the Prince of Wales and his titles. One of these titles is wrong. Which one does he not have? The Duke of Cornwall, A, B, Duke of Lancaster, C, Duke of Rothesay. Which one is he not?
A, B, or C, and the answer is B. Prince Charles is not the Duke of Lancaster, but of course he is the Prince of Wales and Duke of Cornwall and the Duke of Rothesay. His full titles, in fact, are His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales and Earl of Chester, Duke of Cornwall and Duke of Rothesay, Earl of Carrick and Baron Renfrew, Lord of the Isles and Great Steward of Scotland. It's a Queen who is the Duke of Lancaster and is actually toasted as such. The title Duke of Cornwall, first bestowed on the Black Prince in 1337, automatically passes to the monarch's first begotten son. So the Queen, the Duke of Lancaster, was never Duke of Cornwall. Now, Prince Charles receives no allowance from the civil list, but he is expected to depend on income from the Duchy of Cornwall. Now, although most of the property is quite logically in the West Country, there are 45 rather nice acres in Kennington, including the Oval Cricket Ground. Prince Charles is also the proprietor of Dartmoor Prison. He demands no rent for that. In fact, you can get free bed and breakfast. Now, according to some quaint ancient laws, Charles has droit du seigneur to any whale or porpoise washed up on Cornish beaches. And as Duke of Cornwall, his annual dues from tenants should include a load of firewood, a grey cloak, 100 old shillings, a pound of pepper, a hunting bow, a pair of gilt spurs, a pound of herbs, a salmon spear, a pair of Faulkner's gauntlets, and 2 greyhounds.
And a partridge in a pear tree and an autograph photograph of Lady Diana. Now we come to question number 2. The eldest son of the reigning monarch automatically becomes Prince of Wales on his 21st birthday. Is that true or is it false? Does he automatically become Prince of Wales' 21st birthday? The answer?
The answer is false. The title Prince of Wales is usually bestowed upon the eldest son of the monarch, and it can be granted at any age. The title, in fact, was bestowed on our Prince Charles, for instance, in 1958, when he was only 9, although his actual investiture didn't take place until 1969, when he was 21.
Question 3. The last Prince of Wales to be crowned king was A, Edward VIII, B, George V, or C, George VI. Is it A, B, or C, which was the last Prince of Wales crowned king?
And the answer is B, George V. George VI was Duke of York, but not Prince of Wales, because his elder brother Edward VIII was Prince of Wales. And although he became king, he was never crowned. And of course, Queen Elizabeth couldn't be Prince of Wales because the title goes to male heirs to the throne.
Question 4. Lady Diana Spencer is the first Englishwoman to marry the heir to the throne since A, 1863, B, 1751, or C, 1660. She's the first Englishwoman to marry the heir to the throne since when? A, B, or C?
And the answer is C. The last Englishwoman to marry the heir to the throne was Anne Hyde, who married James II on the 3rd of September, 1660.
Question number 5. The first person to have the title of the Prince of Wales was the Black Prince. Is that true or false?
The answer is false. The Black Prince was the second holder of the title. The first Prince of Wales was the son of Edward I, known as Edward of Carnarvon. He became Edward II. Michael Wood has been in search of the early Princes of Wales.
The first Prince of Wales was born here at Carnarvon in 1284, and at that time Wales was a newly conquered country under the foreign military occupation of the English King Edward I, and castles like this were the outward symbols of that occupation. In 1284, this must have been a scene of tremendous activity. The great walls themselves had not yet been put up. What there was a huge construction site surrounded by timber and clay defences, with ships from Liverpool unloading stone, and masons from Yorkshire, carpenters from Nottinghamshire, erecting the first phase of domestic buildings. And one of their tasks was to put up a stone chamber for the pregnant Queen Eleanor. And a glazier, Simon of Chester, was paid 6 shillings and 8pence to put 9 glass windows into that room, the windows through which the future prince first saw the light of day on the 25th of April, 1284. Now, I was taught at school that at that point, the newborn child was shown to the Welsh chiefs, lifted on a shield by his grim father. But nice as that story is, I'm afraid it has no basis in fact, because Edward was proclaimed Prince of Wales at the Lincoln Parliament of 1301, and henceforth had very little to do with Wales, still less learnt any of its language. Edward himself was intemperate and worse, incompetent as a war leader. But among his successors as Princes of Wales were some of England's greatest warriors, like Henry V and the Black Prince. And it was the Black Prince who adopted the badge still used by the Prince of Wales, the 3 feathers with the motto Ish Deen, I serve. And the story of that badge is typically medieval, both sentimental and cruel. It was at the Battle of Crécy in France, so the legend goes, that the blind king of Bohemia, who wore the 3 feathers, was led into battle, roped to his knights, and there slaughtered by the brutish Black Prince, who took both the old man's life and his emblem. The title probably had little meaning in succeeding centuries until the modern era. And then in 1911, with the establishment wanting to boost the royal charisma in an increasingly secular age, Lloyd George, of all people, dreamed up the presentation at Carnarvon of David, Prince of Wales, and the future Edward VIII. The idea probably had not a little to do with the fact that Lloyd George was MP of the town and constable of the castle. Still, David spoke with difficulty a few lines of Welsh, which Lloyd George taught him. Winston Churchill read out the letter patent, and Lloyd George got a statue out of the affair. The ceremony was an anachronism, of course, for no such event had ever taken place in medieval times, but this was the ceremony revived in 1969 when the present Prince of Wales was instated at Carnarvon, giving a somewhat better account of himself in the native British tongue.
Mae'ch ynerchiad wedi fy nghyffordd yn ddwys, a gallaf eich sicrhau fy mod wedi cymryd sylwi o'r gobeithion am lygwyd anddyn nhw. Yn wir, rhywun bwriadu cysylltu.
And of course, the native British tongue is the whole point of this, because the Princes of Wales are English. The real Princes of Wales, the Welsh, were kings here far back in the Dark Ages, when Charles Windsor's ancestors were illiterate condottieri. The Welsh kings were men of prestige and sophistication who could trace their ancestry back into the late Roman period and their language and culture much further. And the lands around Carnarvon, Gwynedd, the mountains of Snowdonia were the heartland of their dynasty. Their royal residence was just over the straits there in Anglesey at Aberfraw, and their kings Cadfan, Merfyn, Rhodri the Great were esteemed as the wisest of kings. Men who kept in touch with the centres of the Carolingian Renaissance in Europe, men who were praised by continental poets for their achievements. But Wales is a small country, and in the end couldn't resist the overwhelming presence of its neighbour England. Its kings were murdered and its lands ravaged by Offa, Alfred the Great, and William the Conqueror, and finally her people submitted to these great castles built by Edward I. From then on, the Welsh people would have English princes and not Welsh kings, although the House of Windsor still traces its descent from Llewellyn the Great as well as from Edward II. And it's those two historic strands which meet in the person of Charles, Prince of Wales.
Michael Wood at Carnarvon. And at the end of that round, your score sheet should have looked like this. B false, B, C false. And Vera, we got 100%. All yes. Right then, including the Black Prince bit. Have you been doing some homework?
Just a little, yes, yes.
Well done, it showed. Who's your favourite member of the royal family?
Oh, the Queen Mum, yes.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. She's so natural. She is so one of everybody, and she's always very thoughtful. On one occasion when I had just done a charity thing for her, and we were having supper afterwards, and we were talking about families, and I happened to mention that my mother was ill at the moment, and she was very concerned, and she looked around and she said, oh, I really must send her something, and she just picked up a little sweetmeat and gave it to me, which I took to my mother in the hospital, and of course you can imagine how thrilled she was to get this from the Queen Mother. And then 2 days later we had a phone call, and Harry, my husband, he answered the phone, and it was the Windsor Castle on the phone. So I said, Windsor Castle. I said, is that the pub down the road? So he said, well, anyway, it wasn't. It was Windsor Castle, and it was the Queen Mum making inquiries to see how my mother was.
What a
and I think that's marvellous, and that's the kind of thing she does.
Malcolm Williamson, we did rather well there. We got 4. We got 4 out of 5. You are at the moment penning a little offering, which you have to offer.
Which I elect to offer, which I
you
wish
elect
to offer.
That's right.
Which is, no, it's something I suggested to Rabbi Albert Friedlander as a hymn, as an offering from Her Majesty's loyal Jewish subjects. And I'm honored that he asked me to collaborate with him. He's a great scholar and a fine poet, to write what is somewhere between a hymn and an anthem, I suppose, a wedding piece on the Song of Songs, which is the Song of Solomon, with some Hebrew words and some English words. And we have given it a dry run in one version with chorus and orchestra last month in Leeds. But whether I have to chisel it down to choir and organ.
We look forward to hearing it. And Robert Lacey, absolutely 100%. What have you got Wales written on the bottom here for?
I was a bit interested by how the Prince of Wales exercises his droit de seigneur on the beached whales that end up around the coast of the country.
He gets the profit off them, I have to tell you. Now, my team that time scored 70. We only missed out on one question, and I'm not going to tell you who that was. So 70 and 130, my team have got 200 points.
Well, our scores are a story of mounting tension. We had 15 from Fiona Fullerton, we had 20 from Michael Jayston, and we had a full house, 25 from Angela Pleasence. I said that you were going to come right, Angela. Can I ask you, is there a favourite historical royal personage, either that you like to act or that you just like particularly?
Well,
Angela?
I do.
Not one that I particularly want to act above others, but I find Arthur of Winchester,
That explains why you don't want to act him.
Henry VIII's elder brother, very interesting because he died from, it is believed he died from a surfeit of study.
Ah, yes. Michael Jayston, having studied the Russians.
I'd like to play, well, it's funny you should say, I'd like to play Peter the Great, although I'm not big enough, and I don't know any actor who would be, in fact, because Peter the Great was about 6'5" and a colossal appetite for everything, and a marvellous monarch and human being.
And Fiona, after Anastasia, have you any royal desires?
Yes, I'd very much like to play Lady Jane Grey, who in fact was queen just for 9 days.
Well,
I seem
let's
to have
hope
read a
that
lot
you
about her.
find the appropriate angels to achieve your desired ambitions. Now, with our team's score of 60, that puts our total up to 190. But Cliff's team got 200 out of a possible 300 for you at home, so I do declare that the winners are Cliff Michelmore's team by 10 points.
Congratulations. Well done.
Well done to ours as well. Anyway, that's the end of the formal questions, but just before we leave you, let's take another dip in the family album. No points for this question. This one is strictly for fun. Now, one of these 3 babies is the future Princess of Wales, whose wedding day is only 10 days away now. Is it baby A, baby B, or baby C? A, B, or C? For Lady Diana Spencer as a baby, and the answer is A, Lady Diana Spencer as a bonny wee thing. Baby B is our good friend and colleague, Clifford Michelmore, no fewer.
And baby C is the young Viking of yesteryear, and a few years before that as well, Magnus Magnusson. From us all, good night.